Located somewhere in the Tokyo of the 1980s, Soun Tendo, the master of the Tendo martial arts school, receives a letter while sweeping the front. The letter was from fellow martial arts master Genma Saltome. Genma explains he's bringing his son, Ranma, back from China. And Soun tears up because he's been waiting so long to marry off one of his daughters. He ran inside, showing Kasumi and then Nabiki. However, Akane was not in her room. She had just come home from a run, quickly put on her gi, layering cinder blocks that she instantly smashed. Training always made her feel good. But Nabiki scolded her that if she kept this up, boys would never ask her out. However, Akane didn't care because unlike her older sister, she couldn't stand boys. A heavy downpour began as the father explained one of them would be getting engaged to his friend Genma's son, Ranma. That way, they could become the successors to the Tendo dojo. Akane seriously objected, saying there's no way he could decide that for them. She wasn't going to marry some random person. Kasumi felt uneasy as well, with the idea of getting engaged to someone she'd never met. Sprinting across town, we see a pink-haired girl getting chased by a panda, who goes for an attack she dodges with acrobatic technique. She then kicks the panda away, but when the panda displayed athletic ability getting up, everyone was shocked. The two continued their duel, but it seems the girl was just a bit more nimble. The panda got up and went on a continuous offense, while the girl shouted, "I never agreed to do it! You can't just decide whom I marry!" Slamming the panda down, the girl declared she'd be going back to China. She grabbed her bags to get away, but unfortunately dropped her guard, allowing the panda to knock her out with a street sign. Picking her up, the panda barked at the spectators before leaving. Soun explains the Saltome father and martial arts skills, their last venture being China. Akane commented that didn't make Ranma strong. Nabiki asked if the son was handsome, and Kasumi wondered how old he was, as she wouldn't marry a younger man. The father just laughed, because he had no idea. He'd never met the boy before. The family then heard the sound of the pink-haired girl screaming, "Let me go!" Nabiki got excited thinking it was Ranma. However, she and her father came back nervous, because inside their house was the deadly martial artist panda carrying a girl. The girls asked their father if these two strangers were his friends, but he denied it. None of them understood what was going on. Then, the panda gently placed the girl down, who looked up at Soun. She then nervously introduced herself as Ranma Saltome. He then gave her a hug, glad that she's come to visit, but he was confused. He thought his friend Genma had a son. Nabiki became curious, deciding to poke Ranma's squishy chest, while Ranma politely asked Nabiki to stop. The father was now depressed, lying in bed knowing there would be no heir to his dojo. Soun swore his friend said he had a baby boy, but Nabiki was like, "Explain these! How is she a boy?" Akane then kindly invited to show Ranma around the place. In the dojo room, she challenged Ranma to a spar, promising to go easy. Ranma accepted, easily dodging all of Akane's attacks over and over. Akane thought, "No more holding back," and went for a heavy strike that broke through the wall. Still missing Ranma. Ranma then poked her, and the two giggled. Akane acknowledged Ranma's skills. It made sense that she traveled the world to refine them, though it annoyed her a bit to lose. She was at least happy to have lost to a girl, because she didn't ever want to be beaten by a boy. And for some reason, Ranma was in a nervous sweat. Later, we see the panda try to dip his toe into the hot bath, and afterwards, Nabiki notices her father sitting with a tearful man. Actually, they were both tearful. She tried asking Kasumi about it, but her big sister wasn't sure either. Kasumi then told Ranma to take a bath, since she was most certainly sweaty from all the exercise. Ranma was reluctant, but starting with splashing cold water on herself, she contemplated what to do about this whole situation. As Akane went up to wash herself off, we now see a boy contemplating on what he was going to do. He then got up, not expecting Akane to slide the door open. She quickly looked him up and down, then exited with his face red. Putting her clothes on, she walked outside the bathroom and screamed running downstairs, ready to drown the intruding boy at the bottom of the tub with the house ornament. Kasumi didn't understand what was going on. Ranma should be in the bath right now. And then, with this mysterious boy introducing himself flustered, we learn he is in fact Ranma Saotome. Just like you should in fact like this video and subscribe to my channel, because here at My Shoujo Weekly, stories are fun, stories are various, stories are told with excellent vernacular, sometimes. So come on, drink the tea, subscribe to me. Son introduced the two guests once more, his dear friend Genma Saotome and his son Ranma. The girls stared, and Akane's intensity made the boy nervous. Genma knew their confusion to be natural, so he quickly tossed his son into their pond, where emerging from the water was the pink-haired female Ranma from before. The sisters were surprised. Genma became teary-eyed because seeing him become a girl was still unfathomably bizarre and uncanny. However, Ranma got payback with a kick, and we learned Genma was the panda. Son still didn't know all the details, but he heard they had undergone a terrifying and dangerous training in China. The Saotome father and son remedied their forms by taking a hot bath. Then afterwards, Genma explained this all happened 2 weeks ago. It was at Bayanhar Mountains, Qinghai, China. There's a place called Spirit of the Fist Mountain. A man had told the two this training ground was too dangerous, and no one used it anymore. Over 100 natural springs formed there, and each spring had a tragic legend. Instead of listening to the guide though, the father and son went straight to training, fighting immediately. At some point, Ranma kicked his father into a spring, but when Genma emerged, he was a panda. The guide explained that was the spring of drowned panda. Legend goes that 2,000 years ago, a panda tragically drowned in that spring, and since then, anyone who falls in it transforms into a panda. Genma wasn't done sparring with his son, despite Ranma wanting nothing to do with getting dunked in the water. Ranma eventually got smacked into the spring of drowned girl. The tragic legend was a girl drowned in the spring 1,500 years ago. Of course, this spring turned Ranma into a girl. Ranma screamed, seeing he was now well endowed. His panda father's jaw dropped. Ranma still held a grudge over those springs, so his father tossed him into the pond once more, reminding the son he said he was willing to give his life to become stronger. Ranma was willing to give his life, but not his manhood. The two continued to fight. Then a pamphlet fell from Genma's shirt. It was a nationwide catalog of training grounds in China. The two older sisters realized Genma took his son to the springs, not realizing what they were because he couldn't read Chinese. So-eun then poured hot water on his friend to turn him back. So now it's clarified. Cold water, they turn panda and girl. Hot water, they go back to their original forms. So-eun had no problem with this though, introducing his oldest, Kasumi, 19, second oldest, Nabiki, 17, and youngest, Akane, 16. He wanted Ranma to pick out of his daughters. But it seems the two oldest were throwing Akane under the bus. Their argument? Well, since she hated boys, it was a good thing Ranma was half girl. Akane said no thanks to that perv, which offended Ranma. He argued he was bathing first. Then Akane argued it's much worse when a girl is naked. The two fathers were joyous though, believing their children were already getting along. Ranma was done with this though. He was going back to China to figure out how to fix this. He then told Akane even though they saw each other in the nude, it didn't matter since he was used to seeing his own female body, and then teased that his proportions were better than hers, giggling, but wasn't expecting Akane to pin him down with the table. After waking up still sore, Kasumi apologized on her sister's behalf and asked her not to think badly of her. She believed Akane to be sincere at heart, but also helplessly violent. In the bath, Akane was seething, just thinking about Ranma's teasing of her proportions. Getting ready for his own bath, Ranma thought about how Akane said she wanted to be friends, and now wondered why Akane said she didn't want to be beaten by a boy. Whatever though. Opening the door to the bath, the two were once again seeing each other bare. Akane then slapped him, and downstairs, he was sad with a big red print on his face. The constant bickering would be a constant for their relationship. Ranma is surprised to hear he'll be going to school, as his father has decided to live at the Tendo residence for a while. Heading out, Nabiki tells Akane she should go with Ranma, since the two are engaged. However, the two do not seem eager. On their way, Akane wants to make it clear that at school, the two of them are strangers. Ranma is fine with that, but as he tells her he hates violent women, his father comes in to slug him before she can. Genma tries to scold his son, only to get kicked into the river. Ranma immediately mocks his father, since Genma can no longer speak in panda form, but this only leads to the two fighting, where Ranma distracts his father by saying there's a cat doing a crab walk. That way he can kick his father away. Sticking his landing, Ranma accidentally gets splashed by a woman watering her garden. He tries to head home to take a bath. However, Akane doesn't want them to be late, so she takes him to the local osteopathic clinic to get some hot water. Ranma takes a moment for reprieve, but suddenly feels death grip his shoulder, then jolts up, seeing a man carrying a skeleton. Dr. Tofu Ono, with a kind smile, reassures Ranma it's just a model, and when Akane makes it back with the hot water, she immediately blushes in the doctor's presence. She dumps the kettle on Ranma's head, ignoring him to greet the man, but this gives Ranma time to transform back. Rushing their way to campus, Akane explains that Dr. Tofu is a famous chiropractor in these parts. Ranma commented on the doctor's strength. He'd never been snuck up on in that way before. He couldn't sense a thing. Reaching the school, we then see a crowd of men who've been waiting to fight Akane. This is part of her hate for men. She jumps into the center and starts easily dispatching guy after guy, as Ranma watches from afar. From higher up, Nabiki tells Ranma to get to class because her younger sister has it handled. And that's for sure. Every single one of the boys was laid out in that short time. But before Akane can get a breather, Tatawaki Kanoe called the horde a group of boorish men. He tossed his rose at Akane, who seemed unimpressed, as he was the next man to challenge her. With Ranma jumping down to Akane's side, Tate pointed his wooden katana at him, saying Ranma behaved too familiar with her. He demanded to know who Ranma was, but first introduced himself as a second year and the undefeated captain of the Kendo Club, the newest rising star of the high school Kendo world, also known as the Blue Thunder of Furikan High School. But the other students apparently never heard of him being called that. Ranma then introduces himself as the second generation of the Saotome School of Anything Goes Martial Arts, and discloses the fact he's also living at the Tendo residence. Tate gets pissed hearing Ranma is living with Akane, and goes for a strike that Ranma dodges with ease. The two begin their fight, and with every strike, Tate demonstrates his impressive power, while Ranma nimbly evades. Ranma then quickly closes in, telling Tate not to get the wrong idea about his relationship with Akane. And wow, was she impressed at Ranma's ability to close distance. Ranma shouted that he didn't like Akane even a tiny bit, calling her a violent, pig-headed, stubborn, pouty girl who wasn't even cute. She got so furious, she tossed her bag that while Tate went for his slash on Ranma, got splits as Ranma evaded. Ranma demonstrated he had the upper hand, but became a gasp with the intense rain pouring. Luckily, his father sprinted in, smacking Tate out while running off with him. And inside the PE equipment storage, Ranma was whining about the rain stopping his decisive blow. Akane then appeared to say she wasn't so sure about that, and checking his neck, Ranma now realized in the final moment Tate had also pointed his sword at his neck, so perhaps it ended in a draw. In class though, Tate was focused on his forehead reading buffoon from Ranma's strike. Pretty impressive since he couldn't even feel when it happened. Then, in Ranma's class, after getting introduced, the teacher declared both he and Akane late, so they were thus punished having to stay outside carrying water buckets. The two started bickering over why they were tardy, with Akane putting emphasis on how she usually beats all the boys before the bell rings. She then explains the daily fighting with her began because of Tate. He was the one who told the boys if they wanted to date Akane, they had to best her in a fight, and that all other forms of courting were unacceptable. Back in his class, he jolted in rage, learning from Nabiki that Ranma and Akane were engaged. He caused such a disruption, the teacher sent him on a hallway punishment as well. So he quickly changed in the closet like Superman, then ran in the halls with his buckets. Where the other two still were, Ranma commented that fighting girls every day must rust the skills. He looked down on the fact that Akane was a girl, then had to back away with Akane threatening to turn their duel into a girl v girl. However, Ranma actually has to dodge the water splash from Tate, who refuses to accept the two's engagement. And oh wow, their classmates are surprised because they thought Akane hated men. The broadcasting club wanted the scoop on their relationship. The two were completely crowded by their peers. Despite all of this, Tate still wanted to duel for Akane's heart, so the two jumped outside the window to fight outside. But what Ranma didn't expect to see was the campus pool right below them. While Ranma cannonballed, Tate was laid flat out. Holding his breath transformed into a girl, he knew this was bad, and needed to find a way to get out of here without his secret getting exposed. He started to swim out, having no choice but to use Tate's unconscious body as a cover. While the other students were so impressed by Tate's motionless swimming, Tate then woke up, slowly groaning his challenge towards Ranma, while Ranma tried to struggle. But then the soft grip on Ranma's chest became a weird moment for the two of them, so Ranma defiantly slammed him and catapulted himself away from the scene. Now contemplating things though, Tate could definitely tell he held a woman, thinking Ranma had run away. Elsewhere, Ranma was squeezing his clothes out, annoyed that his secret might have been blown. Akane then came by with hot water. Then the two started bickering as per usual, but it wasn't long before they heard Tate shouting for Ranma's name. Akane tossed Ranma the hot water, and made a direct challenge to Tate to buy Ranma time. But it seems Ranma wasn't in the greatest position to transform back. Tate went for his first strike that Akane caught. She then tossed him backwards, landing his head smacking the kettle, where he noticed the girl from earlier. He then asked about the boy with pigtails from earlier, to which Ranma denied seeing him. But then, with Tate adding Ranma was afraid of his strength, Ranma let the kettle drop along with Tate. Ranma then took a fighting stance against Tate, which for some reason, Tate only saw with sparkles. Their fight then began, where if Tate won, he wanted Ranma to go out with him? But as Ranma delivered a decisive kick, he clarified this was not for the chance at dating. With Tate's consciousness fading, he only thought of how this new girl was even stronger than Akane. And watching Ranma leave, he wondered who she was. At school the next day, Tate was stunned to hear Nabiki knew the pigtailed girl in the Chinese dress. He then began writing his official challenge letter, giggling in a gross manner. And back at the Tendo residence, Nabiki explained to Ranma it was for his girl self, so it was clear that Tate had not figured out his secret. Inside the letter read, "Come to Furikan High School's second ground at 10 a.m. on Sunday." The girls explained Tate hated losing, so this was his challenge letter. The day came and Ranma wondered where Tate's sword was, only getting a cocky response from Tate, saying there was no need. Ranma took his battle stance, and as Tate approached, he gave Ranma a bouquet? Oh my, Ranma never expected to hear Tate say he was in love with him. Tate then left, with Ranma falling to the ground in disbelief. On another day, Ranma finds himself waking up in a hot spring he didn't remember getting into. Then suddenly, out from the water emerges a titan-sized Tate, carrying a bouquet of roses, declaring his love. Oh, phew! It was just a nightmare. On the way to school, he and Akane deal with the men courting her quickly. While in class 2E, Tate has put a panda present on Nabiki's desk. She throws it away, but he quickly catches, telling her it wasn't for her, but the adorable girl with the pink braid, causing her to spit her soy milk at him. She quickly got to business, laying out the candid shots she had of Ranma, offering a set of 5 to Tate for 3,000 yen. Oh my, he was shaken from seeing his crush's unguarded position. However, that didn't stop him from making the purchase. Nabiki criticized Tate for switching off his feelings for Akane so quickly, but he cleared her misconception. Akane was innocent and pure, while the pigtailed girl was a sporty beauty. They're both so cute, he simply couldn't let either of them go. So, his heart is crying out for the chance to date both of them simultaneously. Nabiki wasn't going to let this opportunity go, offering a 5 set of her little sister's photos for 4,000 yen. She then went to class 1E to tell Ranma that Tate wanted to see him, and receiving the panda plushie, he wondered what the heck was going on. But Tate also wanted to know. Nabiki had told him the best way to give the pink-haired girl a gift was through Ranma. Ranma tossed it back, telling Tate he should just forget about that girl already. because he'd probably never see her again. This horrified the upperclassmen. But of course, some students from above dump water over Ranma for no reason, and when Tate runs after Ranma, pissed, slashing a tree, his pigtailed crush falls from it, and Tate never wanted to let go of her. Luckily, Nabiki responded quickly with a hot tea kettle, and Ranma knocked Tate out as fast as possible. Just kidding, Tate wasn't done and he still didn't understand what was going on. Nabiki didn't help at all, only telling Tate the pink-haired girl's body and soul belonged to Ranma. Tate erupted, slashing at Ranma and calling him the enemy of women. Akane sighed seeing the two boys fighting. Then, when Ranma landed a direct blow on Tate, the photos he bought started flying out, catching Ranma off guard and getting him slashed. Ranma then nimbly dodges several following slashes, but gets tripped up by a tree he flipped against and lands before Akane. She tries to explain Tate is more brutal fighting men, only to get Ranma responding blue panties didn't suit her. So she kicked him away right into a flurry of stabs that he had to dodge from Tate. But Tate's force was so destructive, he obliterated the tree and broke the pillar Akane was hiding behind. Ranma then deflected Tate's final strike and delivered a destructive barrage of kicks that struck all of Tate's weak points and knocked him out. Ranma didn't get off scot-free though. Akane affirmed this by flicking the part that Tate grazed, causing Ranma to fall over in tears. After scolding him, she found her pictures in his back pocket, and that's when Nabiki informed them she sold the shots. Ranma just couldn't stop running his mouth, calling Akane's pictures boring, and comparing the two of them, he said she didn't even have half the sex appeal he did. At the osteopathic clinic, Dr. Tofu was concerned because aside from the katana strike Ranma had, he also had severe contusions and dislocations. Ranma hoarsely uttered it was from a girl who suffered from no sex appeal, causing Akane to instinctively dump him off the bed. Realizing she was in front of her crush, she put on her cute girl act, and the doctor just laughed, now seeing Akane's signature moves in Ranma's injuries. The doctor painfully adjusted all of Ranma's injuries, while chatting with the two over their recent engagement from their fathers. After calling the two of them kids, Akane became a little saddened, knowing she wasn't seen as a woman by him. Ranma started to complain about all the pain, but then noticed he was fully healed. Outside of the clinic, the doctor told Ranma to treat Akane nicely, claiming her to be a sweet girl. Then he patted Ranma's back, sending the two off. On their way home, Ranma started to poke Akane for being a tomboy, causing her to pause and seemingly accept it in a somber tone. Ranma noticed and tried to check up on her, explaining he was just kidding. He felt a lot better with her getting mad at him than being sad. While the two commenced their play fighting, the doctor was counting down the clock for Ranma to fall over. It seems he did it to Ranma during his back pat. Akane sighed, saying she had no choice but to give him a piggyback ride. He objected, saying that was embarrassing for a man, so she sprayed him with water from a hose. No problem now that they were both girls. Getting carried under the stars, Ranma could now somewhat see how sweet Akane really was. With Ranma and his father training one morning, Kasumi alerted them to breakfast, causing the two to get distracted and dunked in the water. We learned starting today, Genma had a part-time job, according to the sign he was holding. Soon walked by, seeing Ranma wring his shirt out in female form, so Akane quickly dumped hot water on her fiancé to change him back. On their way to school, Akane didn't notice Ranma transformed back into a girl, and everyone was trying to get a glance at a girl-on-girl show. The boys behind her were crying now though, accepting the fact that she was engaged. Tate then showed up, ready for another duel with Ranma, but seeing his pink-haired crush instead, he was brought to tears, telling Ranma he missed him. But Ranma just kicked him in the face. After Ranma demonstrated his acrobatic skills in phys ed, his peers clapped for him. They wanted to know how far he'd gotten with Akane. And seeing her catch a baseball, Ranma actually started blushing over how cute she was. However, he denied it to his friend next to him, and as he was about to admit she had a crush on the doctor, she slammed the baseball into his cheek. Akane apologized on their way home and spotted Ranma's father sweeping. It seems Dr. Tofu had hired him for the part-time work. The phone started ringing, so Genma tried to pick it up. However, pandas couldn't talk, so Akane took it, but didn't explain the context to anyone and instead decided to head home. Ranma asked why she was trying to leave so suddenly, since she had a crush on the doctor, so she pulled him aside privately to explain that the doctor already liked someone, and that someone was on the phone, who said she'd be coming over soon. It was Kasumi. The doctor caught the two in the hallway, so it looks like they'll be staying longer. Seeing Ranma's injury, he could tell Akane hit the ball from the depth and angle of the stitches. When Kasumi arrived, the doctor accidentally snapped Ranma's neck. In the presence of Kasumi, the doctor was completely flustered and head over heels. So distracted, in fact, that when Ranma asked him to fix his neck, the doctor just snapped it in the other direction. At home that evening, Ranma observed Akane letting off some steam and decided to go tease her, turning her sadness in a rage. She couldn't believe this was his attempt to actually cheer her up. Oh, it seems her attack fixed his neck. Asking him to keep her company, they sparred in the dojo, with Ranma dodging every strike. Akane wasn't pleased he wasn't fighting back, because she wanted to blow off some steam. Ranma wondered if it was tiring with her being so angry all the time, and told her she was really cute when she smiled. Her guard dropped so suddenly, Ranma was able to push her down with a playful poke. In her bed that night, she lay down sighing and slightly blushed, wondering if Ranma really meant what he said about her smile. She got up to see it in her mirror, but with Ranma barging in through her window and calling her smirk creepy, she snapped the mirror in half and gave him a beating. The warning town bell rings, with the villagers shouting, "There's a huge wild boar attack." The boar eventually goes for the backside of a boy, who stops it with his umbrella. The boar continues to push forward, only to get tossed like a low-level mob and instantly defeated. With the villagers crowding around the boy to marvel over his amazing skills, we learn he was trying to find where Furikan High School was. But, learning he was in Shikoku and the high school was in Tokyo, he took off with one objective in mind: defeating Ranma Saotome. At the Tendo residence, Ranma was getting chased by the two older sisters, who were trying to put him in girls' clothes since his clothes were still in the laundry. Akane wasn't so eager to loan her clothes, and hearing one of her outfits was tight around his chest, yet baggy around the waist, Akane felt insulted and started beating him. A week went by where the lost boy from earlier finally arrived at Furikan High. He grabbed the boy leaving the school and asked where Ranma was. We see Ranma trying to run from Akane, as he didn't want to go shopping with her for the groceries. But in the air, Ranma sensed bloodlust, and that's when the boy from before began his assault, barely missing. Akane asked Ranma if he knew the boy. However, using all his brain cells, no one from memory came to mind. The boy then asked why Ranma no-showed their last duel, so now, finally Ranma remembered. Ryoga Hibiki and him had gone to school together. Ranma apparently waited 3 days at the spot for their supposed duel, but Ryoga was pissed, because when he finally arrived on the 4th day, Ranma was nowhere to be found. That doesn't sound like Ranma's fault. Ranma wanted to know why it took Ryoga 4 days, given Ryoga's house was only 500 meters away from the empty lot they were supposed to meet at. Ryoga was pissed, making all sorts of excuses. But now I'm starting to understand the theme of this guy's character. He ended up in Enoshima, Harajuku, and Asakusa. He has a terrible sense of direction, but somehow was blaming Ranma for breaking their gentleman's agreement and running to China. Ryoga then attacked with his umbrella, displaying some of his techniques, and again, Ranma dodged with ease. Ryoga then threw Ranma an official challenge letter. Afterwards, Ryoga continued to maul about his hatred towards Ranma, claiming his life had gotten so messed up and it was all Ranma's fault. He was going to crush Ranma just like this walnut. All while back at home, Ranma had no idea what he even did. A few days later, Ranma was fighting with his father over their meal. Nabiki inquired about the challenge, and that's when Ranma's memory was finally jogged. Back at their old school, all the boys were crowding around for the last curry bun, and before Ryoga could reach it, Ranma hopped on top of his head to claim it. From then on, Ryoga held a grudge. But wait, that still wasn't quite right. Why would he only be mad after a curry bun? So after changing back to his normal form through hot water, a new revelation popped into his head. Ranma beat Ryoga pretty much every time during lunch for the last item. Various buns, katsu sandwiches. Reading the challenge letter, Akane revealed the date of the challenge was supposed to be yesterday. Ranma told her there was no need to worry though, given Ryoga's poor sense of direction. A week passed by and everyone at school was tuning into the match between Ranma versus Ryoga, with live commentary provided by the radio club. However, Ranma said he didn't come to fight, tossing a curry bun as a sign of peace. Then, a yakisoba bun, croquette bun, melon bun, katsu sandwich, an array of a few more. Ryoga was still pissed though, especially finding out they were all past expiration, which might actually be Ryoga's fault since he was a week late to their challenge. Their fight began, with Ranma dodging Ryoga's relentless assault, and reaching the ground, Ryoga tossed his umbrella and binded Ranma with one of his bandanas. But, with them both kicking, they were now leg to leg. The umbrella eventually landed into the crowd area, and we learned it was far too heavy for any normal person to pick up. Even Akane was shocked by its weight. She told Ranma to get more distance from Ryoga, who pierced Ranma's cheek with his next attack. Ranma then dodged the next attack and flipped Ryoga over, but through sheer power, Ryoga propelled them up into the air. Ranma escaped and went for a kick that Ryoga dodged. Ryoga then grabbed his umbrella and narrowly tore Ranma's favorite outfit, pissing Ranma off. Ryoga didn't care though, calling Ranma's care for fashion girly. This set Ranma off enough to begin fighting with more ferocity, and he crashed into the outdoor sink area with his next attack. And now seeing the female Ranma, Ryoga was a bit taken aback. He became too distracted seeing Ranma's chest and took a direct kick. Akane then arrived to tell Ranma about his indecent exposure. That way he could cover up. Ryoga then pulled out more bandanas, twirling them for his next attack, and they were flying all over the place. Akane tried to run to get Ranma some hot water, tripping over a tree stump. Ranma then went to save her, stopping Ryoga's umbrella attack and deflecting the bandanas, all while holding Akane in his arms. He brought Akane to safety, letting off a deep sigh, and realizing what position they were in, she jumped out of his arms. The two were both flush-faced. They then began to argue. Ranma didn't like Akane getting involved because she could have gotten hurt, and Akane wasn't happy with Ranma for fighting in his female state. They were so distracted, they didn't notice Ryoga cutting down the support below them, and with Ryoga going for another strike, Ranma blocked it with the umbrella. The engaged couple continued to argue as they fell, where on landing, Akane slapped Ranma. She was hurt and tearing up, hearing Ranma call her worry bothersome. Even with Ryoga attacking, Ranma quickly kicked him away to go after Akane. She was about to yell at Ranma, but was met with surprise getting her hair chopped off by Ryoga's deflected bandana. Oh man, she was stun-locked afterwards. Ranma tried interacting with Akane, but she was in complete shock, unmoving. The other girls scolded him, saying that was obvious, but they also didn't know who he was since he was in girl form. The two boys asked Akane to hit them as hard as possible for reparations, and with the quick succession of two loud smacks, she left the two boys red-cheeked. She made her way back somberly, stopping to punch a pole, feeling a twist in her ankle from the fall earlier. Ranma had been following in secret, now worried for her well-being. Akane sat in her room depressed, thinking of her childhood time spent getting treated kindly by Dr. Tofu. Whenever her big sister Kasumi would come by, she noticed the doctor was always flustered. Back then, Kasumi also commented on Akane's tomboy attitude. Akane thought that by growing her hair out, maybe she could be just like Kasumi. Ranma then knocked at her window, and in response, she threw her lamp at him, saying she wasn't mad. While Kasumi was cooking, she became so shocked seeing Akane's hair, she nearly tossed the food, which Ranma saved. Akane remained positive, asking her big sister to clean up the cut. Later that evening, Ranma stared at Akane's chopped locks of hair, thinking about how hurt Akane seemed when he told her not to worry for him. He genuinely wanted to apologize to her. He ran to her, and her short haircut made him think it wasn't her initially. When he said sorry, she told him to let it go in response, adding she was hoping to cut it short sometime soon anyways. Ranma followed behind her, offering her a piggyback ride to comfort her. However, she found his comforting creepy. At the chiropractor's, the doctor was surprised to see Akane's hair short once again. While he fixed her sprained ankle, Akane asked how her hair looked, getting Tofu to respond that the shorter style suited her much better. She giggled, knowing he'd say that, but couldn't stop the tears from flowing down her face. When he tried to comfort her, she screamed and cried, letting it all out, while Ranma and his father watched from the sidelines. She felt a lot better having cried it all out, telling Ranma everything was alright now. She didn't need the doctor's validation anymore. After all, he was in love with Kasumi. She's come to terms with it now. Ranma then jumped down and somewhat shyly told her that her new hairstyle looked good. She was shocked, wondering if there was something wrong with his head. She tried to walk it off, not wanting his sympathy. So, without looking at her, he admitted he preferred her shorter hair. For once, he was really flustered. She genuinely thanked him in response, and all he could think about was how cute she was. However, this led to him being so caught off guard, Akane nudged him into the water below. We turned our attention to a beach somewhere. Ryoga wandered, determined to bust into the Tendo dojo in order to get his revenge on Ranma. He eventually made it on one rainy night, and where Ranma and his father slept, Ryoga shouted at Ranma, punching into a pillow since Ranma rolled over. He then shouted even louder, pissing the father off enough to knock them both out of the room. Ryoga felt revenge had no time of day. After Ranma stood him up the first time, he followed Ranma to China. It all made sense now why Ryoga was holding an umbrella. He transforms when exposed to water after visiting the same springs Ranma and his father went to. Inside the house, Akane and Kasumi woke up, preparing themselves to deal with the noise they were hearing around the house. While Ranma and Ryoga were in the midst of combat, Akane threw a dumbbell at Ryoga, and getting exposed to water, he fled. Ranma chased after him, only finding his jacket left behind. Oh man, did he become some kind of dog? Back inside Akane's room, she sensed the presence of someone. A small creature then jumped at her, and she slapped it away in reflex. It was a wet little piggy with a familiar bandana wrapped around it. Akane was sweet to the pig, comforting it and holding it close, noticing a bump on its head. Downstairs, Ranma was scolding Ryoga while Akane walked in with the pig. Hearing Ranma call Akane weird for carrying it, the pig got worked up for some reason. She calmed the pig by holding it close to her chest, telling it she'd apply the medicine to its bump. However, Ranma noticed the pig was blushing for some reason, and when Ranma grabbed the pig, it started attacking him. Akane then started petting the dog, claiming her name was Beth, belonging to one of their neighbors. Ranma wasn't convinced, pouring hot water on the dog, which of course did nothing. If it wasn't obvious by now, the pig is clearly Ryoga. Ranma then decided he wanted to go warm up with a bath, so Akane told him to take the pig as well. Ranma got undressed in the bathroom, keeping the pig hostage with his foot. He then shoved the pig in the bath, and of course, Ryoga appeared face to face with Ranma's female body. Ryoga then began his assault, which got blocked by a water pail. He then explained his story, following Ranma to China, wandering the vast terrain. He walked for days on end. Then on that fateful day, a strange girl and a panda knocked him into one of the springs as collateral during their sparring. And Genma found the little piggy and handed it to the tour guide for cooking, only for him to burst out in a boiled pain. He blamed Ranma for his curse due to standing up their promised duel. And now with Ryoga seeing the strange girl and panda was Ranma and his father, Ranma tried playing cute and innocent, only to earn more ire from Ryoga. However, Ranma saved himself by turning Ryoga back into a pig. But then Ryoga took out a big chomp out of Ranma. They took their fight all the way downstairs, where Akane stopped Ranma by grabbing his chest. She then picked up the crying piggy, planning to take him to cuddle in bed. She gave him a kiss, making him sparkle and Ranma furious. When she fell asleep with the pig, Ranma snuck in with hot water. He tried to take the pig out quietly to prevent his secret from being exposed. However, the sleeping Akane would grab the pig unconsciously. Ryoga then bit Ranma's second attempt at grabbing and started jumping all over the room, and eventually knocked Ranma, falling on top and waking up Akane. She really didn't like that and started beating him continuously with a kendo sword. The next morning, Nabiki told Ranma if he wanted to sneak into Akane's room at night, he should keep it down, while Kasumi told him there were proper steps to relationships, all unknowing that Ryoga was getting coddled at this very moment by Akane. We see Ranma enjoying some buns, having learned his girl form is best when buying food, since he usually gets a lot of freebies this way. He then spots a girl with a villainous aura, surrounded by 3 students from his high school with bandages covering their faces for some reason. When the students go to attack her, the girl easily defeats them with a gymnast ribbon and starts whipping them continuously. That's when Ranma felt the need to step in, reminding the girl she already won. The girl was a bit nervous, as she could tell Ranma was no ordinary girl. She quickly picked up a baton to attack, but was disarmed just as easily from Ranma's leg sweep. Impressed by his technique, she introduced herself as Kodachi, the Black Rose, from St. Bacchus' school for girls, as she tossed the black rose at him, exiting while laughing. Ranma then went to check on the crying students, who revealed themselves to be 3 female members of the rhythmic gymnastics team. Ranma brought them to Akane to explain that their entire team was wiped out by Kodachi, and with the competition coming next week, at this rate, they'd have to forfeit. They begged Akane to be a stand-in member for them, since this was martial arts rhythmic gymnastics. Gymnasts from each school competed against each other using acrobatic techniques and tools. And so, Akane agreed to avenge them. Ranma couldn't believe Akane agreed, considering she had no idea how to use gymnast tools. But she remained optimistic. They then heard a little snouting, and it was Pichan, aka Ryoga, who happily jumped into Akane's arms. Pichan was a name she gave him for being a little piggy. Ranma seemed shocked and somewhat jealous to learn Pichan got to sleep in her bed every night. After Akane steps away, Ranma teases Ryoga for acting like a pig at heart, saying the way he clung to her was just pathetic. With Ryoga biting him over the insult, Ranma was about to slug him, instead getting whacked by Akane first. Akane tried all the tools, but wasn't able to catch the batons, twirl the ribbon properly, or even use the hula hoop without breaking it. She was pissed hearing Ranma insult her over her lack of elegance. Pichan took a stroll away, hopping into Master Tendo's bath and coming out Ryoga, which was completely ignored by the master. With Akane upset over her lack of skills, Ryoga, a master of tools, offered his assistance. He was embarrassed hearing Ranma teasingly call him Pichan, but his heart melted hearing Akane's gratitude. He demonstrated his ability with the ribbon, whacking Ranma against the wall. By the end of their training session though, Akane was clearly not that much better than before, still getting tangled up by the ribbons. Out by the house pond, Ranma expressed his annoyance over Ryoga's shameless actions posing as a pet for Akane. However, Ryoga was having a lot of fun watching Ranma's jealousy, as he took a dip to turn back into Pichan again. Ranma then hunted him down, to prevent Ryoga from sleeping in Akane's bed any further. Unbeknownst to them, Kodachi had arrived at the Tendo house, here to deal with the Furikan High's gymnast stand-in. Her goal was to render Akane immobile. Akane plopped on the bed, finally resting after a tough day of training. Not expecting the black rose to be hanging onto her ceiling, Kodachi strikes with her hammer that Akane dodges, and introduces herself while continuing her assault. She proclaimed wanting to engage in fair and square combat without the use of tricks. However, Akane and I am wondering how this is fair and square, since Kodachi ambushed the girls from earlier and is now ambushing her. Kodachi believed calling it an ambush was misleading. She just thought it was best to secure a victory even before the match began, proclaiming matches start long before the bell rings. But she wasn't expecting the door to slam her into the wall and for Ranma to be chasing Pichan while tearing up Akane's room. Akane goes to tell Ranma to stop, but still has the acuity to deflect Kodachi's sneak attack. Kodachi called it an end to the day, summoning a flurry of black rose petals that Akane is probably going to have to clean up. Her sisters show up to tell her to keep it down, but Akane was still seething to deliver the black rose payback. On the roof taking her leave, Kodachi suddenly sees Pichan running past her, and Ranma accidentally whacks her with a tea kettle, then goes to save her. Upon opening her eyes, she sees him as really handsome, and now he realizes who she is. Getting flustered, she aggressively grips onto him, telling him how scared she was. Her life had been drab going to a girls-only school, spending her days grinding gymnastics routines. She was on the brink of surrendering her dreams of blissful courtships. She would have never guessed she'd find the man of her dreams tonight. She quickly pulls out a bouquet of black roses that explode in his face. Ranma falls, because it was laced with paralytic drugs? She then pins him to the ground, telling him that she wants a kiss. But luckily, Akane kicks her away to save him, so Kodachi makes her escape. Akane then looks at Ranma with a hint of jealousy, apologizing for interrupting his romantic endeavors. At school the next day, Akane senses bloodlust and catches Kodachi's attempted attack with a bamboo sword. Kodachi did not see this as a sneak attack once again, claiming it was just her way of saying hello, and that she wasn't even here to see Akane, but instead Ranma. Akane then tosses her over, and with Kodachi going after Ranma, he makes a run for it. Tate then made his way forward with a bouquet of roses, and a head full of perverted thoughts about Akane's upcoming gymnastic performance. Ranma dodges an attack while kicking him in the face in return. With Tate grabbing at Ranma's shirt, he was surprised to find his little sister Kodachi curling up to him, but he gave the two full approval to date. She immediately became sad though, hearing Ranma didn't want to date her, but to deter her bad feelings, he used the excuse of Akane being his fiancé. In response to this news, Kodachi whipped out her ribbon and made a wager with Akane. Whoever wins the upcoming gymnast match gets to claim Ranma. Tate urged Akane to go along with it since losing was her ticket out of the engagement. The night before the match, Akane was in tip-top shape, using all the gymnast tools with high proficiency on Ranma. Pichan then made his return, with boxes of maple leaf manju and unbaked yatsuhashi from Hiroshima and Kyoto. Ranma teased the pig, asking where he was trying to go, knowing Ryoga was so bad with directions. After undoing the bindings Ranma placed Pichan in, Akane decided to go for another attack, but had an unfortunate trip over a ball. She now had a twisted ankle and was in no condition to walk on it, so now they needed a female replacement who could move gracefully, had a good physique, and had fighting experience. The three sisters began to look at Ranma, and with Ryoga dumping cold water over him, it was time for an all-night training session. During the training session, Ranma lands a direct kick, but gets a quick scolding from Ryoga, who reminds him he needs to use tools to win the competition tomorrow. They continued their bout, as Ranma used the tools in combination with his own acrobatic style. Akane managed to compliment Ranma, but all this leads to is him getting struck in the face with the ball. When he turns around to tell her to go to bed, she looks away, telling him she isn't worried or anything. Then, Ryoga elbows Ranma, telling Akane the training will be just fine and that she can definitely rest. Although, she isn't quite sure where Pichan is. Back where the two were sparring, Ryoga brings up how he overheard that if Ranma loses, he'd have to start going out with Kodachi, and consequently, annul his engagement. Which is why Ryoga wanted Ranma to lose tomorrow's match. Ranma had no intentions of losing or dating that woman, so they continued their intense sparring all night long, making a complete mess of the place. Morning came, and as Akane stretched, fully rested, she overheard loud crashes in the dojo. Turns out, the two guys had baggy eyes from their all-night training session. Ranma was certainly delirious during breakfast, accidentally chewing on his towel, mistaking it for a fish cake. At St. Bacchus's Girls' Academy, Kodachi attempted to shake hands with Ranma, but Akane caught her quickly, seeing Kodachi had tacks between her fingers. Kodachi tried to play coy, pretending not to know how they got there, but it was obvious Kodachi was up to her preemptive no-good fighting style. Entering the Furikan High changing room, Akane had to push Ranma out of the way of a falling tub, also courtesy of Kodachi. After crashing into the wall, Ranma was fully awake now. Then they examined a gift bouquet of black roses from, you guessed it, Kodachi, where upon dropping it into water, it completely knocked out a fish. It was filled with sedatives. Outside, Ryoga arrived, in tears since he finally hadn't gotten lost trying to get somewhere. He attributed this to the power of his love for Akane. He began his run to where he wanted to sabotage Ranma's match, but unfortunately got splashed by a bucket, making him an angry piglet. Hearing the girls clamoring over the cute little Pichan, Kodachi gained a new idea for her next scheme. At the arena, Ichiro of the Furikan High School's broadcast club announced the fierce rivalry between Furikan and St. Bacchus's was about to be settled today. The crowd was cheering for Kodachi, and when the announcer asked for Ranma's name, he just gave it in full despite being in his girl form, making his dynamic entrance. The people were surprised that female Ranma shared the exact same name as a student they all knew who was a guy. The name sharing particularly pissed Kodachi off. However, Tate began writing it down, still having a crush on female Ranma. The rest of the students started coping about female Ranma having the same name, and even looking similar to the Ranma they know. No one suspected a thing. With the match about to begin, Kodachi used a simple tactic to distract Ranma, getting him handcuffed to Pichan, who was still determined to get in Ranma's way. The bell rang as Ichiro announced that barehanded attacks were prohibited, and the match wouldn't end until a fighter is completely KO'd or falls off the ring. Ranma still had his own reservations about beating a woman, so his plan was to knock her out of the ring without giving her a scratch. Initially though, It seemed Kodachi had the edge. She used all kinds of dirty tactics, including rods that protruded spikes. She was going to do whatever it takes to court the Ranma she loved. But, landing a kick using Pichon as a tool, he shouts he had no plans on dating her whatsoever. He tells Kodachi after he wins, she must promise not to go anywhere near male Ranma ever again. Kodachi then starts to approach Ranma, questioning if he's smitten with himself while attacking. She then throws a hula hoop razor blade that splits the arena corner, and grabbing the hoop back with a ribbon, she tosses it again. But Ranma nimbly evades. Realizing no words were convincing, he was ready to go all out, wielding poles like nunchucks. That's when Kodachi began to use her special attack, Thousand-Armed Club Attack. But Ranma counters, breaking her technique with a ball spike. Kodachi's dirty tricks have no limits though, as she grabs the bell from outside the arena, tossing it directly at Ranma, who blocks it with Pichon. Ranma retaliates, grabbing a desk, while Kodachi answers by tossing her own brother to shatter it. And somehow, the judges declare the biological brother as a legal tool to be used. Genma then suddenly appears to offer Akane tea. This actually becomes a problem for Ranma later, because Kodachi decides to grab the kettle, and ends up spouting water, turning Ranma and Ryoga back to their male forms, hidden from the crowd by the mist. Luckily, Akane and Genma come to the rescue with a fire hose from outside. Ranma swims through the current to avoid falling out of the ring, and gets cut down by one of Kodachi's hula hoops. She then goes for an attack with a baton, but gets tossed when Ranma flicks her using his legs. Getting out of her daze, Kodachi blows a whistle, causing the ring to move for some reason, but allowing Kodachi to land safely within. Ranma immediately figures out what's going on, so he crushes the ring, revealing all the St. Bacchus girls who were moving it from beneath. With the ring completely torn now, only the rope and corner posts remain. Ranma finally felt he had the advantage, since aerial combat was the basics of the Sao Tome school of anything goes martial arts. However, Pichon interfered with his fight, so he tossed Pichon around the pole and began his punishment of the pig. This made him distracted enough to get caught off guard by Kodachi's ribbon. But Ranma counters by tying the rope above and going for a kick that doesn't land. He then decides to finish this by attacking the pole Kodachi was standing on, while he displays his flexibility that prevents him from touching the ground, earning him the victory. Kodachi was in tears, now promising to let go of her love for Ranma for today. She then gets up, refreshed at the idea of letting her new love for Ranma burn brightly tomorrow. Her fighting spirit was undying, causing Ranma to crumble into dust. On another day, Akane displays her skills at the local ice rink. Sitting down for a break, her friends ask her to join the ice skating club, but she's still figuring out which club to join, since a lot of clubs would love to have someone as athletic as her. Seeing her food take the shape of a pig, she realizes she forgot Pichon in the rink. Little Pichon can't seem to move effectively on the slippery ice, and is found by a girl named Azusa, who calls him Charlotte. When this girl picks him up, he tries to escape, quickly getting knocked out because she wants to bring him home without struggle. She's in love with the cute piggy. Eating lunch, Ranma's classmates are challenging his relationship with the pink-haired girl who shares the same name as him. They brought up the fact that she had a pigtail and was a strong martial artist, and suspected she might be his cousin or his sister. Either way, they wanted him to introduce her to them. He denied knowing anything, but they were sick of Ranma being greedy. He already had Akane. They at least wanted dibs on the other Ranma. To this though, Ranma kept insisting he didn't want an unsexy tomboy like Akane. She then suddenly barges into the restaurant, quickly closing in on him and tearing up, which caused him to blush because he thought she was crying over his unsexy comment. Really though, she was upset because Pichon was missing. That's when Azusa appeared with the pig, who Ranma quickly pointed out. When Akane tried to take him back, Azusa quickly pulled away, wanting her to leave her Charlotte alone. Before the argument could continue, Azusa's skating partner, Mikado, pulled the pig away from her, handing Pichon back with a sparkling glow that charmed the other women in the restaurant. He explains Azusa has a tendency to take cute things that don't belong to her, all while Azusa beats on him long enough for him to start shouting at her. With tears in her eyes, she challenges Akane to a skating challenge for the pig. That's when one of Akane's friends remembers who the two skate partners were, the golden pair of freestyle skating from Koko's high school. However, the restaurant owner continues to ask if anyone is going to place an order for food. Azusa then turns off her innocent act to tell Akane to surrender while she can. Either way, Akane had no intention of losing. Mikado then apologizes to Akane on behalf of his partner, and in a sweet voice, tells Akane he can make it up to her, but probably wasn't expecting a fish cake to land on his face, tossed by Ranma. Mikado walks over, accepting what he called an unorthodox white glove challenge. These two boys would face off in 1 week at Koko's High, the challenge being pair skating. Despite the dramatic tension, Azusa ruins it, pestering her partner for the fish cake because she found it to be cute. Heading home, Ranma wanted to make it clear to Akane he totally wasn't jealous back there and that instead, he hated player-type boys. When she tells him his actions were still unnecessary, he gets frustrated but calms down seeing her straight face. He then asks if she liked that kind of treatment from Mikado, but in response, she tells him if that fish cake hit that guy's face any slower, she would have slugged him herself. While the older sisters discuss how Ranma and Akane could win the skating competition since they always seem in sync, Ryoga suddenly barges in, saying he wants to be the one to skate with Akane. Ranma starts teasing him, asking how Ryoga knows about the match while calling him Charlotte. The two bicker, challenging each other to their own skating battle, which would have been fine if either of them knew how to skate. Akane teaches Ranma in his female form because he thought it wasn't cool if a man didn't already know how to skate. But Akane didn't believe the uncoolness factor had anything to do with being a boy or girl. She then suddenly gets knocked over by Azusa, who plays coy about bumping into her on purpose. All while Ranma slides intensely back on the rink, getting safely caught by Mikado. When Ranma brings up Mikado's name, Mikado wonders where they've met before, not believing how he could ever forget a pretty face like female Ranma's. Mikado's flirting does get interrupted by Azusa kneeing him. As a reminder, it was time for their 100-man kumite, or sparring practice. Akane was surprised, questioning what sparring had to do with ice skating, but she would soon learn as they got surrounded by 100 aggressive hockey players. Mikado set Ranma down and took an offensive stance with Azusa. With the kumite called, the two took out their opponents with incredible style and grace, displaying an array of techniques, both separate and together. They could spin, defeating foes in a violent vortex with all 100 laid out in 9 seconds flat. The golden pair was the pride of the freestyle skating martial arts team. Hearing the words martial arts, Ranma lit up, feeling excited because he knew he could win anything with the words martial arts in them. Spotting P-chan running away from girls, Akane skated towards to grab her pig, only to get swiftly intercepted by Azusa, who placed a pink collar on him. Akane took him back, trying to take off the collar that read Charlotte, but it was pointless. In that short time, Azusa had locked the clasp, and she'd only unlock it if she was defeated in their showdown later. Where Ranma was continuing to struggle, Mikado picked him up, happy to offer Ranma private skating lessons. He wanted to give Ranma a parting gift for saving him, a bent-over kiss that put a shocked expression onto Akane. Ranma was broken, screaming and crying as he ran. Mikado just assumed the female Ranma was an innocent girl with a pure heart. But as Ranma quickly ran into the boy's bath, cannonballing into the water, he felt so gross from that kiss, and embarrassed it happened in front of Akane. He rose from the bath angry as hell, and returning to the ice rink, he furiously challenged Mikado to a fight immediately. Ranma was so enraged, he punched cracks right into the ice. Mikado didn't understand what Ranma was so angry about, but because Ranma destroyed a rink, something he found sacred, he was willing to spill blood in combat. Ranma went head first, getting stuck into the rink from Mikado evading. Mikado thought it was over, a misplay because Ranma was unrelenting, despite his clumsy movement on the ice. Seeing Ranma still manage to cut his shirt, Mikado decided to use one of his deadliest techniques, Dance of Death. Ranma jumped at him, taking insanely rapid blows from Mikado that no one has ever escaped before. The vortex eventually launched Ranma, where he landed headfirst onto the ice rink. Akane stared, unfazed, going to Ranma and telling him to stand, so he pushed himself up, still falling clumsily onto the ice. Azusa came by to say they should call it a draw. However, Akane already knew Ranma had won. When Azusa decided to check on her partner, she prodded at him, realizing Mikado had completely passed out. And so, everyone decided to draw on his face for their amusement. What they hadn't seen was that in between the vortex, Ranma had struck Mikado over 500 times. Ranma felt justified getting a kiss stolen by that man. Ryoga then came by to tease him for it, so the older sisters started taking their shots at Ranma as well. Nabiki said it would be tragic if that was Ranma's first kiss, while Kasumi giggled there's no way that was the case. He was so fixated on all the teasing, his guard was down enough later to get slapped from behind by Akane. She started to tease him too, while tending to his wounds. So, he decided to put her in a spicy position, saying she had no room to talk. Staring face to face, he pulled away, telling her not to get the wrong idea. The two started arguing, with Ranma saying it's not like he was gonna kiss her, and she challenged him, saying it's not like he had the courage to. This led to him taking on her challenge, telling her to close her eyes. He then began to move forward, causing them both to get flush-faced. But then he pulled away once more, questioning if this was okay, suggesting it'd be better for her to do this with someone she actually liked. She gets frustrated, then makes the excuse that maybe she wasn't good enough for him. But he says that's not the reason. He just doesn't want to make it a big deal, and now the two were awkwardly flustered in silence. We then hear a scream from Nabiki, and it turns out the whole family was waiting for them to hurry up and kiss. They were so embarrassed now. Still at the ice rink, with black marker all over him, Mikado was infuriated, desiring to end Ranma. We arrive on the day of the Charlotte Cup at Kokol's high school. At the entrance, Ryoga thinks he needs a way to somehow pair up with Akane in today's match, but receives a surprise cold bucket splash from Ranma, who tells the piggy to enjoy the show. Inside the men's dressing room, Mikado glosses his lips and begins to glaze his flawless appearance. With Ranma entering in and calling him a chronic horn dog, he doesn't take that too well. Mikado admits to having underestimated Ranma the other day, but since today was an official match, he claimed the outcome would be different. He declares during the match he will steal Akane's lips no matter what it takes. Man, this guy is going full sex offender. Ranma tries to insult Mikado by calling him a philanderer, but it's ineffective since Mikado owns up to that fact, responding his head is full of inappropriate thoughts. With the match about to begin, we see Pichon chained to the winning trophy. The lights shine down on the golden pair as they make their grand entrance, which then follows men and women from their school screaming their names. Getting ready for their entrance, Ranma picks up Akane suddenly, but slips onto the ice, somehow managing to make their presentation dynamic with his lack of skating skills. Azusa skates over to laugh at them, and the two girls bicker over who will keep the black piglet. The bell rings for their match time, and as Ranma and Akane go for a preemptive strike, the golden pair swiftly evades, with Mikado getting in to grab Akane. None of the female classmates are pleased to see him go for his kiss attack, and Ranma finds his opportunity to intervene. But he then gets disrupted by Azusa doing a knee drop. Akane finds her opportunity to launch Mikado off of her, but he lands gracefully, claiming Akane was just a shy girl. He felt the more she pushed him away, the more it fueled his fire. He begins spitting Azusa for their next attack, but Ranma finds a way to slug Mikado right in the stomach, catching Akane on his back. However, the two can't seem to stop the sliding, but somehow slide up the rink and land safely. Seeing her partner in pain, Azusa pokes at Mikado, then starts punching him, asking if he's hurting. Ranma comes by to tell Mikado if he tries to kiss Akane again, it'll be more than just a slug to the stomach. He loudly announces in front of everyone that anyone who messes with his fiancée is dead. Akane wondered if he really meant that. Mikado called engagement a fragile bond. He declared he would do everything in his power to end their relationship, because the golden pair of martial skating was also known as the matchbreaker on ice. The broadcasting club explains their ultimate technique was known as the couple crusher. They've never failed to break a couple apart. When Ranma and Akane go in, the golden pair catches them off guard, with Azusa feigning a kiss with Ranma as a way to catch Akane off guard. Then Mikado picks the three of them up, going into a deadly vortex called the Goodbye Whirl. Azusa actually gets too dizzy, letting the two of them go, and Ranma covers Akane, crashing into the rink with maximum impact to protect her. She gets up, Seeing through all that, he refused to let go of her hand. This even brought Ichiro to tears. But could Ranma get back on his feet? Akane tried calling out to him, but he wouldn't move. She started tearing up herself, crying into him and calling him a baka. This actually wakes him up, so he asks, why not a thank you or even a sorry? He plays it cool, saying he'd never be taken down by a measly attack like that. But getting up, it seems every bone in his body was crackling in pain. Back at the trophy, Pichon seems to have escaped. Ryoga knew his time had finally come. Ranma was still raring to go, but as Mikado began to respond, his partner stopped him because she wanted him to go look for her missing Charlotte. Akane then flicks Ranma down, pleading for him not to fight anymore. Then suddenly, it's lights out, courtesy of Ryoga, who then dumps water onto Ranma so that Ranma could spectate the match as a girl while Ryoga paired with Akane. When the lights come back on, unfortunately, Ryoga finds he grabbed the wrong girl. As the two start to fight with each other, Mikado starts to have delusions about female Ranma. The girl, who gracefully accepted his kiss. He fantasized about how Ranma was glad to have her first kiss taken by him, but Ranma wanted to stop the delusions. Ryoga started beating up Ranma again, so he could partner up with Akane. However, the male audience wasn't happy with the fact that female Ranma wasn't in a sexy outfit. That's when the Koko's High Stylist Club jumped onto the scene to put the two into a new matching set. Mikado ignored them to go flirt with Akane, getting Ranma thrown onto his head by Ryoga. Ryoga then tried taking Akane to continue the match, but Azusa came by, calling him Charlotte because of the collar around his neck. Ryoga was scared, thinking his cover was blown as Akane began to stare at him. But luckily, Ranma saved him by calling him Pichon, causing him to dramatically fall down and distract her. Akane then tried to tell Ranma to go rest up, but he stopped her, expressing his plea for her not to go without speaking. Ranma and Ryoga then began their pair skating forward, only to slip because Ryoga still couldn't skate. This put them in a bad position, allowing the golden pair to begin the goodbye whirl again. That somehow ended with Ryoga being crushed into the ice and Ranma being caught in Mikado's arms. Mikado then declared starting today, he'd be Ranma's boyfriend. Ranma then broke the daydream with an attack. Going back to Ryoga, he's so pissed he punches into the rink, and with it coming apart, we learn it was built via freezing a swimming pool. Ryoga was now shaking, knowing that if he turned back into Pichon in front of Akane's eyes, she'd probably call him a pervert and never want to be around him again. But still, he knew he had to win this for her. Now things were going to get serious for the second round of this match. Ranma leaps first, but before Ryoga could follow, he gets pulled down by Azusa. She wanted her dear Charlotte to give up and come home with her. Mikado held his hands out to catch his lovely pigtailed girl, but avoided Ranma's spiraling kick. And when Ranma lands, it seems he's still suffering from lingering damage. Mikado held on to Ranma, asking why he was so angry. With Ranma calling Mikado a sleazebag for hitting on every girl in sight, Mikado got a different impression. He thought Ranma might be jealous of Akane garnering his attention at the moment. And that's when Mikado revealed his special talent was loving all women equally. He declared his love for Ranma to be deeper than the ocean. But of course, Ranma had no desire for any love from another man. Back to Ryoga, he tells Azusa that he was not Charlotte, and that he freed the little pig, choosing to take the collar as a keepsake. Azusa became furious, deciding to spin Ryoga violently and tossing him, all because she wanted her Charlotte back. With Ranma and Ryoga regrouping, the two decided to work together given their natural disadvantage on the ice. Ranma becomes a helpless girl, calling Ryoga a jerk before slapping him in the face. The two have a spat much like a quarreling couple, and Ryoga leaves, causing Ranma to fall to his knees. Ranma then begins to use some crocodile tears, uttering, "Alone again. I knew it. The only one who will ever love me is..." lighting Mikado up enough to come to Ranma's side to console him. A simple trick for Ranma to toss him backwards where Ryoga would trip him into the water. Now it was 2 versus Azusa. She started tearing up, asking why they were ganging up on a helpless little girl. Baiting them gave her the opportunity to quickly strike, but Ryoga ultimately defeated her with a single head flick. Everyone was cheering on the Furikon High duo, including Akane, bringing Ryoga joy. However, the golden pair wasn't finished yet. They somehow assaulted Ranma and Ryoga with a chunk of ice, and now the two boys were back to arguing. Ryoga got a nerve struck remembering he'd never beaten Ranma once. He was pissed, ready to settle their score now. He pulled up a boulder, attempting to crush Ranma, and even with Ranma countering, Ryoga sent Ranma back with a pile driver that drove them deep into a split block of ice. Ryoga tried to make his escape, barely avoiding the cold water. Then suddenly, Azusa crashed while still calling for her Charlotte, and seeing Mikado was next to enter, Ryoga dug deep, using his thoughts of Akane to give him strength, pulling the chunks of ice together until he was the only one left standing. Azusa ran to Mikado, getting taken away by a stretcher, only to get distracted by the cube blanket on top of him. He tried to pull it back because he was cold, so she whacked him with a chair, happily leaving with a new blanket she named Martine. The Furikon High School pair was declared the winners. But the fight between Ryoga and Ranma was not over. Ranma was about to finish Ryoga off before Akane intervened. The two boys still kept fighting over her, eventually leading to Ryoga breaking the chunk of ice she was sitting on. The boys became quickly distraught to find out Akane couldn't swim, and they dive out for her. Although Ryoga forgot about the cold water at first, they plunged and went after her. Akane woke up suddenly to the sound of Ranma sneezing, and he tossed Pichon back to her, who was cold and wet. The classmates explained Pichon had pulled her to safety, and she gave her heartfelt thanks. Ranma told Akane to thank Ryoga as well, since he'd also put in his best effort, calling it a draw between the two boys. Everyone then noticed the wall started cracking, an outburst of foot from this purple-haired Chinese girl, a girl Ranma frantically called Shampoo. This girl was here to kill him, quickly going on the offense with her weapons. Ranma then pulled a blanket over her, giving him time to escape, and Shampoo went after him. Akane then pulled open the locker he was hiding in, asking if there was history between the two, and now prodding at the fact that Shampoo was quite pretty. We turn back to Ranma and his father's training excursion back in China. On their journey after the hot springs, they visited a village of Chinese Amazons, and Ranma was incredibly hungry. They watched Shampoo victoriously win a contest of skill, but Ranma and his dad made the mistake of eating her first place prize, causing Shampoo to go on the assault. Their tour guide had to translate her words, since Ranma couldn't speak Mandarin, where Shampoo explained she had just won the annual martial arts tournament, becoming champion. Ranma's answer to this was to casually respond that if he beat her, then everything should be fine with him eating the prize. In their duel, with her charging in, Ranma easily defeated her with a single kick. Then, unexpectedly, Shampoo ran in to give him a kiss, a fact that Akane was not too happy about from his story. The guide screamed in horror, dragging Ranma out, claiming that action to have been the kiss of death. The Chinese Amazons took extreme pride in themselves. Losing to an outsider was a dishonor worse than death. The kiss of death was a deadly pledge to chase the receiver to the depths of hell and kill them. After that, Shampoo chased Ranma the entire time he was in China, now reaching him in Japan. And despite the full context, Akane just kept poking her annoyance at Ranma for how pretty Shampoo was. When they came home, he fell over finding her casually drinking tea in the living room. His father brought her home, but really, she followed him all the way back after work. She began to fixate on Ranma, giving him a stern, "Ni hao." She was a little surprised to see him as a guy. Ryoga then threatened to turn Ranma back, but Shampoo interrupted their talk, telling them to show her where female Ranma was. She began to attack, which led to Ranma retaliating back and accidentally defeating her. Uh-oh. This means she had lost to another outsider. Ranma tried to get away, but was shoved into her by Ryoga. Her serious glare at him quickly became smug, before delivering a kiss in front of everyone to him. Akane was furious. She threw Shampoo's weapon right at Ranma's face. Now the two girls had a flaming rivalry over him. Soon then came in asking what's going on. So in panic, Kasumi explained Ranma's girlfriend from China came to reclaim their relationship. Which wasn't exactly true, but close enough. Akane was definitely jealous, describing Ranma and Shampoo's interaction as intimate. And he was in no way beating the allegations with Shampoo doting all over him. Akane shouted at Ranma, calling their engagement dissolved before stomping off. Son then angrily asked Ranma for an explanation, but with Shampoo poking at the master, nudging him to read the Chinese Amazon Sutra, things became more apparent. Just kidding. Son can read Chinese. But Nabiki started reading. According to the sutra, should a female warrior be defeated by an outsider, if bested by a woman, she must give her the kiss of death and kill her. However, if defeated by a man, she must join him in marriage. Everyone was stunned and flabbergasted, except for Shampoo. And then we learned Nabiki couldn't read Chinese either. There was Japanese translation on the side. Outside, Akane was furiously kicking a training dummy, calling Ranma stupid over and over again. She finally blew off some steam, coping with what was transpiring by accepting the idea their parents had decided on the engagement themselves. And it's not like she and Ranma really liked each other. Then, remembering Ranma declaring her as his fiancée he'd protect in front of Mikado during the ice skating duel, she got up and decided to go dust off the dummy. She then overheard Ranma scolding Shampoo for following these old-fashioned traditions. Unbeknownst to Akane, Kasumi and Nabiki were listening right behind her, and they urged Akane to make up with Ranma, since it was clear he had no interest in Shampoo. However, hearing Shampoo call Ranma "my husband" in Chinese reinvigorated Akane's anger. And then, seeing Shampoo jump all over Ranma, telling him she loved him, brought Akane to the edge. She began tearing the training dummy apart. Ranma's father sent him blasting away though, seeing his son becoming such a mess. On the rooftop that night, Ranma thought over the events of the day. He thought of how Shampoo had always tried to kill him, and only now noticed how cute she was. He wished Akane was as straightforward with him. Ryoga then suddenly dumped cold water on Ranma to transform him, and throwing a bucket at him as well. Ryoga let out his own frustrations of seeing Akane get jealous over him. The two's bickering went back and forth, with Ryoga beginning to attack Ranma, but never really landing as usual. Ranma then tossed Ryoga into the house's pond, getting Ryoga into piggy form. He then began to pick up Pichan, explaining out loud that Akane was making herself jealous. However, Akane was standing right behind him, and quickly slapped Ranma, letting him know he could get to know Shampoo all he wanted, before taking off with the teasing Pichan. Shampoo then appeared, ready to kill Ranma, who got chased around the backyard without much retaliation. Inside Akane's room, she began to angrily train to let off steam once more that night. The next morning, the family had Akane go wake up Ranma for school, but she wasn't expecting to find Ranma and Shampoo sleeping in bed together. She came back to dump water on him, and when Shampoo saw him in female form, she became somewhat confused, and their chasing continued. On the way to school, Ranma set the record straight, explaining to Akane that Shampoo had snuck into his room. The two continued to fight all along the way, while Ryoga watched. He decided to depart without saying goodbye. He knew that all he was to her was Pichan the pet pig. Even if he tried to make advances on Akane while she was angry at Ranma, or if Ranma was killed by Shampoo, he feared the idea of Akane telling him that she still loved Ranma. Trying to begin his getaway, he accidentally got splashed with water from an old lady watering her garden, and that's when Shampoo thought to garner the affection of the cute pig. During lunch, Shampoo bursted into the classroom to deliver a loving meal to her husband Abi. However, both Ranma and Akane were horrified to see a freshly cooked Pichan. Shampoo tried to feed Ranma directly, but he just grabbed the pig and woke him up. Akane then cried tears of relief over her beloved pig, but she wasn't expecting Shampoo to deliver her the kiss of death. Ranma tried to de-escalate things, only to get knocked away. The two girls were going to settle everything in the schoolyard. After Ranma woke up, he quickly ran to find Akane, worried because he had no faith in her ability to defeat Shampoo. Finally hearing Ryoga's squeals, he only found Akane passed out with Pichan crying on top of her. He tried to shake her awake, but she was completely unconscious. He cried out her name in lament. When she finally woke up, he became bashful, telling her he tried to stop her, but for some reason, she asked him who he was. Akane remembered facing off against Shampoo, but couldn't remember what happened next. Her head felt nice and refreshed for some reason, but with Ranma going after her, she wondered what was his problem and why he was acting so familiar with her. She legit couldn't remember him. When their classmates came by, they broke it down to her that she and Ranma were in fact engaged. She couldn't fathom it, but saying his name over and over again, she felt it somehow rang a bell, as if something felt very nostalgic about his name. Falling to the ground, she blurted out that Ranma was the woodwork between the ceiling and the lintel installed for ventilation and lighting purposes. Or perhaps it was the type of Latin music that originated in Cuba with a 2/4 time and dynamic rhythm. But Ranma corrected her, because that was rumba. Realizing she's completely forgotten about him, Ranma took Peach-on, evading Akane's attacks with ease. In a storage room, he poured hot water over Ryoga and interrogated him. Ryoga wasn't too eager to help though, considering the situation really worked out in his favor. So, Ranma threatened him with the idea of exposing the classmates to him being naked. As it turned out though, Ryoga had gotten stepped on by Shampoo and didn't see anything. Dr. Tofu later determined this to be the legendary Demon Fist, Shifa Shengao Shiatsu, which I'm definitely sure I butchered. Ranma's father confirmed it, having seen the whole thing. The technique was nothing short of a master's work, all in a matter of 56 seconds. This technique manipulated memories by pressing certain shiatsu points on the head, while applying a special blend of shampoo. Hearing this, Ranma decided to act quickly, dragging Akane to search for Shampoo. Little did they know, she was actually boarding at Tofu's office as a nurse in training. Back at home, Ranma got surprised by Shampoo holding fake panda hands. When Shampoo decided to hug and call him her husband, Akane suddenly elbowed him, but didn't know why. For some reason, just seeing them hug caused her to lose her temper. The older sisters could tell it was a conditioned reflex. Deep down, she must still remember him. Shampoo was getting nervous, seeing Akane hadn't been completely subdued by her technique. She tried to use it again, but inadvertently gave Ranma the opening to take her shampoo to immediately scrub onto Akane, causing her to smash him through the sink. Dr. Tofu then explained that bottle of shampoo wouldn't work. They needed blend 119, which he had the recipe for in his book. Kasumi was happy he was here to help, causing the doctor to get flustered and ask why she was here, but he was in their house, and fidgeting to the point of destroying the recipe. Ranma packed up, deciding to go find a pharmacy in China to buy the special shampoo blend he needed. Everyone was cheering for him, while Akane wondered why he would go so far for her. Filled with determination, he told her to hold on tight because he was going to make her remember him. Son and Genma were ecstatic over Ranma's expression of love, and now Akane wanted to remember who he was. Sprinting off, he was suddenly stopped by Shampoo, who was holding the 119 bottle. The chase began, reaching the rooftops, where she opened her shirt and stuffed the bottle into her chest, taunting him to grab it. That wasn't going to stop him though. He was already used to a woman's body at this point. But going for a grab, Shampoo suddenly screamed, turning away to prevent his defilement. He apologized, then instead offered to grant her one wish in return for the bottle. He'd do anything for her, as long as it wasn't marrying her or killing Akane. She begrudgingly accepted, requesting that he instead kill the female Ranma, which meant Shampoo still hadn't caught on that Ranma could gender bend. He accepted, as long as they could meet in the middle, not killing female Ranma, but instead leaving her half dead. Ranma told Ryoga to beat him to a pulp, but Ryoga said no. He wanted Ranma to give up on Akane so his love could bloom. The two started fighting, but Ranma accidentally beat Ryoga up instead. So, the two fathers decided to lend a hand, shedding tears over Ranma's willingness to go this far for Akane. Akane barged in, not liking that they were picking on Ranma, but Ranma told her to butt out, adding that she wasn't cute. This caused something to spark in her brain. Perceiving what was happening, Son told Ranma to repeat it. So Ranma furthered the insults, calling Akane plain Jane, ferocious, clumsy, no curves, and slowpoke. The words finally broke through to Akane, and she smacked him in the face while calling his name. Shampoo then suddenly burst through the wall and tried to help her husband up, but Akane pulled him aside. Shampoo then attempted to kill her, but Ranma stopped Shampoo. However, him grabbing her only provoked Shampoo to shower him with more love. He was left with no choice. He dumped water over his head, exposing that he was female Ranma to her, and lied, saying that he was actually a girl this whole time. Shampoo then grabbed him, threatening to kill, but she stopped. As tears dripped down her face, she took off, heart full of pain. Ryoga explained to Ranma that Shampoo had uttered the Chinese phrase for farewell, as in, she'd never see him again. Ranma thought of her saddened face, thinking it was a bit of a shame to let her go. That's it? This is how the 2024 series ends? No closure? No love? Man, I hope they continue adapting this series. Subscribe to the channel for more. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.